Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Holistic Pharmacy podcast. I have a returning guest with me today from an earlier season with some major life and career updates. So I can't wait to get into this episode. And allow me to introduce her one more time. Dr. Swathi Varanasi is an award-winning pharmacist, passionate about the intersection of personalized medicine, patient outcomes, and innovation. With experience spanning patient care, biotech research, academia, and consumer product goods, Dr. Swathi has paved the way for healthcare professionals to pursue non-traditional career paths through creating postdoctoral training programs, industry internships, and online educational programs. She co-founded and serves as Chief Scientific Officer of the Life Sciences Division at Element Apothec, and serves as a Principal Investigator at a contract research organization, Citruslabs. So I'm not sure if there are any more updates other than that, but I'm excited for you to share with us. If you could start by sort of reintroducing how you came into the field of pharmacy and what got you to branch out into some of these non-traditional roles.
Oh my gosh, so many updates. So I can start from the beginning and then I'll bring it to now. And if you want to pause me at any moment, definitely let me know and we can dive into any of the things. So went to pharmacy school like many of the listeners. And throughout pharmacy school was trying to figure out where I fit and trying to find mentors along the way. Found an incredible mentor in Dr. Pam Tarlow, who you all might be familiar with. She was probably one of the first integrative pharmacists in the country. Had a chance to do one of my final API clinical rotations with her. And, even a few days into the rotation was like, this is absolutely where I see myself at this intersection of, the conventional prescription side, but also how do we improve quality of life and just overall patient outcomes, and thinking about it from a multifaceted perspective. So thinking about prescriptions as, one of the modalities, but also thinking about things like herbal medicine or supplements or nutrition or movement, mindfulness, all of these other things that really play a role in how we feel every single day and how patients go about their day-to-day and just how we can improve those for them. And so had a chance to do a residency with Dr. Tarlow. At the time, there was no integrative health focused residency program, and there still really aren't that many. So we were able to create the first residency program that focused on integrative health and this kind of intersection and interplay. And then after that, so finished my residency with her, absolutely loved the patient care aspect of it, but really fell in love with the more macro scale of how can we bring this to more people. And so I actually went back and did a postdoctoral fellowship in industry focused on medical affairs. And so that was for a company that was thinking about how can we branch, what we currently have, our products into, whether it's preventative cardiology or thinking about other ways to improve quality of life measures. And so I had a chance to do that. And then after that, I worked for a big health tech company called Everly Health, and I was their director of medical communications and publications. So got to work on a lot of consumer-facing and healthcare provider-facing content, as well as some clinical trial strategy, and loved that. In the midst of all of this, had a chance to work with some lovely people at Element Apothec and co-found Element Apothec, which is a botanical and CBD CPG brand, also focused on quality of life. And so what's new as of the description from when I submitted my form is I'm no longer Chief Scientific Officer, and I've moved on from the company, and happy to talk about that experience and co-founding a company and really all of that entails. And I've since started consulting full time. And I really felt like the transition from, being a part of a CPG brand from the beginning to what I do now has really, really I honestly don't think what I do now I could have done without being a part of Element Apothec. And so it's all about the stepping stones of I always thought I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Had the incredible opportunity to be an entrepreneur with such like-minded individuals, and then felt a calling to be able to bring what I learned at Element Apothec to other brands. And so primarily what I do now is consult with different CPG brands. So this could be supplement brands, health food brands, or even other health tech brands with my experience working for Everly Health, and help them figure out how do they speak to healthcare providers. Oftentimes, these companies don't have healthcare providers in their C-suite, or they don't have healthcare providers that work with them full time. And, they might have a direct to consumer presence already, but they're thinking about what other channels can we tap into. And so I help them with, healthcare provider engagement. Maybe it's creating the materials or the pamphlets, or serving as like a media representative. So I'm able to, go on TV shows and different things like that to talk about the science. And at the end of the day, yes, I'm an integrative pharmacist, but I'm obsessed with the science, just as you are, Marina. I'm like really trying to figure out, what science is out there. How can we help bolster what's going on in science too, whether that's the research or review papers and things like that. And how can we also get more people into the fold? And so like beyond the consulting side, I'm really passionate about mentorship, and figuring out how we can get more people to find roles that really align with the way they view medicine and, what they want to contribute to the world.
Wow, Swathi. I mean, that sounds so exciting. And first of all, congratulations for paving your own path and building that stepping stone ladder that has led you to where you are. And that's what I really love about your story, is that there wasn't a residency, like you said, right? And there wasn't this like carved out role that you could go and apply with your resume or CV. But it required you to like blend and like put things together and knock on doors and see what's out there and take some risks, right? And I think that's the really challenging thing too, that people, pharmacists, right, they may not be 100% aligned or happy with their career, whether they're just graduating or whether they've been in a place for a long time. It kind of gets them to feel stuck, and they don't really know how to take the first step. So what would your advice be to like take that calculated risk? How do you decide what's aligned for you? And how do you decide which steps you need to go to in order to get closer to that?
Oh my gosh, I have so many things I could say. So the first thing I would say is, I'm all about trying new things. So even in pharmacy school, and, while all my friends were, or all my colleagues were working in a conventional pharmacy, I was out, working in a clinical research lab. I got to work on a phase 3 clinical trial that was a pharma-sponsored trial. I got to also work in startups in the Charleston ecosystem. I went to school in Charleston, South Carolina, so I got to be a part of their startup ecosystem. And it's really the willingness to try new things, but I totally understand that there's risk associated with trying new things. So I would say, while you have a full-time job, let's say, yeah, it's not your ideal role, you're not absolutely loving it, maybe you're a little burnt out, but how can you find something on the side from that where you can just start learning and growing? So one thing that I recommend to a lot of people is like, keep your full-time job for now, but use some of those skills that you've learned in your full-time job to potentially help a startup. And so a lot of like the interaction, how you can meet startups is just through the internet. Like you don't have to go to conferences. I mean, you totally could, but you like now, like with the internet and everything, and LinkedIn still being free, which I bet you I mentioned last time, because I still can't believe it's free to just create a profile and just interact with like the most amazing people all over the world, that I would just go on LinkedIn and just start messaging some startups that are doing some interesting things. Like the worst thing that could happen is that you send an awesome message and they just don't respond, right? Like no one's going to respond and be like, how dare you reach out to me or something. Like if you're on LinkedIn, you got to expect to get some cold messages. And so I would say keep your full-time job, but start diving into things that you're interested in. That could be, as I mentioned, doing a cold message to a startup or a number of startups and seeing like if there's something you could do for them. I mean, a lot of the stuff I initially did was for free. Like when I was building my medical writing portfolio, I did a lot of free work. I mean, it looks like if you look at my portfolio now, it's like, wow, she worked for this company, she wrote for this company, she's been writing for so many years. But what you don't know is that a lot of that was for free to just build the portfolio, get the experience, and honestly, the experience working with other clients on the side. And so I would start with that. But even actually before that is use LinkedIn to your advantage, or even Instagram, and find people who are doing cool things, like something that you admire, and just send them a message. Honestly, you might have zero mutual connections. A lot of people I send messages to, I might have like 2 mutual connections or 0, but I just send them a message and just say, hey, love what you're doing. I mean, sometimes when people are forging their own path, it feels really good sometimes to get like just a little bit of positive reinforcement, to be like, okay, like someone's watching it out there, someone's, like supporting what I'm doing. And it's just that little extra thing that sometimes you need when, your colleagues that maybe you went to pharmacy school with or something are all doing kind of the conventional path and they don't really understand what you're doing. So start off with sending a few messages and just see who responds, who's willing to hop on a call. And a lot of these initial calls can just be learning. They can just be, a way to connect with people and to grow your network, rather than the first message or the first time you meet with someone to be, the moment where you're asking for work or asking for an advisory role. So it's all those like first steps. I mean, that's how I learned about integrative medicine. A lot of it, even before meeting with Dr. Tarlow, was that on LinkedIn, when I was a student, I found people in integrative medicine. The thing is, at that time, I didn't see anyone on LinkedIn who was a pharmacist in integrative medicine. So I was out here messaging physicians and nurses and PAs and asking them how they got into the role, how did they find mentors? And that really helped inform a lot of what I do now, because I always think like if someone else can do it, like, of course we can do it too, right? Because we're all just trying to figure it out. And that's the coolest thing to find out as you talk to more people who have like the most cool resumes ever, is like oftentimes they're just like, yeah, I tried this and then it kind of worked, but then it kind of didn't. And then they're just all just trying to figure it out, just like you are.
Yeah, I love that. And shout out to Dr. Tarlow. She was, I think, my first guest when I started interviewing people for my podcast. And she is just phenomenal and a wealth of knowledge. And everybody should go look her up. She's very active on LinkedIn and shares a lot of cool stuff too, especially when it comes to integrative health. And I love what you're sharing, all those tips to just take those first steps, follow the breadcrumbs. And what I've noticed personally in my own journey and other people that I mentor and coach is that there's like sometimes resistance or scarcity mindset, and of course fear that comes up, and imposter syndrome, like, I'm not sure if I can do this, like I'm nobody, I don't have any special skills or training, or whatever, your mindset tells you during these moments, or you're afraid of competition, or you're afraid there's not enough roles to go around. So what would you say to somebody that has these thoughts come up?
Great question. So I hear the competition one all the time, like, oh, do I want to be another integrative pharmacist in the space? Do I want to be another functional medicine pharmacist? Like those sorts of questions. I would say no one else is you. And so just because, you're also entering the space to do, functional medicine, like think about, for example, how many psychiatrists there are out there, or how many like clinical therapists there are, how many social workers there are. Like on paper, yeah, like they all have the same credentials. They all work with patients or clients, but there's a reason why certain clients resonate with some of them and choose to work with, one person over another. I would say the same thing for functional medicine, integrative medicine, any other kind of like more niche specialty you're interested in. No one is you. And so you on paper might have, the same interests in providing functional medicine care, integrative medicine care, which of course are not the same thing, just using examples. But at the end of the day, if you're looking to do patient care or to find clients, there's enough work out there and enough people that need your help that you adding yourself to the fold is actually only going to help more patients, because your approach is inevitably going to be just a little bit different from the person next to you, even if you're both approaching it with the same idea. I hope that's helpful, because I think for me, like when I was starting off, I was one of the only integrative pharmacists, so I had that kind of like working in my favor. And now I think that like now that there are more people, which I love to see, and I like welcome more and more people into, do like practicing this kind of a pharmacy or medicine or just healthcare in general. I think it's really exciting, because that means that there's more of us to spread the word of like what we think the way healthcare should be. And that's only going to help more patients. And I think that especially now, more and more patients are looking for, whether it's the more natural way, or they're looking for, a more evidence-based perspective with, maybe they're not interested in using prescriptions anymore, or maybe they want to use less of them. And so there's more and more interest from the patient or consumer side. And therefore, that is followed by, the exciting startups and everything that are in the space that are also there to find and meet that need. So just because you're joining, a group or you're joining a niche and making that niche grow doesn't mean that you're just another number, because the way that you're going to approach things will be just a little bit different. And it's all about finding that differentiation. And oftentimes the differentiation is just you being you. And I think authenticity is something that we don't talk about often enough in healthcare. And I think that the more authentic you are to you, the more relatable you are to, your, colleagues, whether that's through your hobbies or just like being honest about what you think about something. You'd be surprised how many people are potentially feeling the same way or will resonate with that, but maybe don't have the confidence to say it.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I love that Marie Forleo says about the competition aspect is like, imagine if, we stopped making music after Beethoven, right? Like it was so great. And then everybody was just like, all right, that's it. We're done. No more music, because that was the greatest symphony ever. So just think about each of us has their own unique note that they're carrying into the world, and our added frequencies are creating the future of this world. So you get to contribute in that authentic way that is your gift and your light. So that's the way that I like to reframe it as well. And I think this brings me to my next question, which is that sometimes people think, okay, they need specific strategies or specific degrees or specific types of experience in order to qualify for some of these things that we're talking about. So what would you say, looking back on your journey, what was absolutely necessary as far as maybe degrees or trainings? What maybe could you have skipped perhaps or not done? Maybe some mistakes that you feel like you've done. And then also as it comes to strategy, like now we see a lot of the social media strategies and influencers popping up, and some people say you have to share on a broad platform, and like you have to get eyes and you have to grow that way. So would you say that's a good strategy? Is that good for everybody? And then also the cold messaging strategy, like is it a mix of the two? What's your take on that?
Yes. Okay. So both great questions. So I have hot takes, I think, when it comes to like degrees versus, certificates and things like that. I think that they are helpful. Like you can't deny that education is going to help you, right? So, when I was in my residency, I did a nutrition certificate at Cornell. I feel like at the time with what I was doing, it was super helpful to kind of expand what I was learning in the pharmacy setting, in the clinic setting, in residency. And like looking back on it, I think it was an amazing experience because it was what I was interested in, and it did end up helping me. So I'm not going to say that degrees and certificates are not helpful. What I will say is that I don't think that they're a requirement. I think that you can get a lot of the experience that you need or that you want to get into a new field through experience. And through experience, by that I mean that could be shadowing, that could be, an internship, that could be, especially now with, the way things are remote, you could easily do like a, part-time remote internship. Or like you could think about like if you want to go into integrative medicine, you could find someone in your network that is willing to maybe give you some mentorship, and or maybe someone in your actual like local area where you can go and shadow them and learn from them. And I think that even if you get a degree, you still have to pair it with a certain level of experience. Like even if you think of like the pharmacy curriculum, I mean, 3 years we were sitting in seats taking exams, but then the whole year after that was how are you going to apply it in the clinical setting? And so even if you go and pursue degrees and certificates, it's all about like how you're going to use that information. And I think that's, also why a lot of people have very strong feelings about, oh, you need to go to a top 10 university, you need to go to different places. Like at the end of the day, it's how you use the information. Oh gosh, I don't remember what company it is right now, but I was looking online and there was a new CEO that just, like got this, great position. It's at a CPG brand. I don't remember right now. But anyways, I remember looking up to her and being like, wow, I looked at her education and she got her MBA from like an online program that's not top 10. Normally CEOs, that's, what we think of is they went to a Wharton or a Stanford or something. But instead it's how she used that degree that now she can say, yes, I'm an MBA. Yes, I learned these things. And now look, I'm the CEO of this company, right? So it's like multinational, billion dollar valuation company, right? So it's more about how you use the skills and like the experience that you get versus the actual like, oh, I'm getting extra letters after my name, to get this additional certification or something. So that's my opinion. I mean, I didn't get a certification from my residency, but that experience, that kind of work experience, and that mentorship, I really think is what helped me get to the next level. So that's what I would say about that. About like creating content. So I personally, like, I don't love creating content as in like, okay, maybe I should backtrack. So the thing is, you have to find content that you like to make. That's what I really meant to say is like, I've tried to do the whole like record myself on video, posting it to like Instagram reels and things. And I've done a few, but like it doesn't really resonate with me. And I think like that's the other kind of element of authenticity is you have to feel great with what you're putting out there and it shouldn't feel like a chore. And I literally would put it on my to-do list and be like, okay, Swathi, like it's Friday, you said you would do it this week. And then I didn't end up doing it because I just didn't prioritize it because I didn't enjoy it. But I think it's trying to find the type of content medium that you like, writing more long form content. Like I'm really enjoying Substack. Like that's a great place and I'm experimenting with, posting different things there. So I'm enjoying that medium. And then you can kind of translate some of that content and it's all about like reusing and repurposing content. So think about like if you create one piece, how can you use it like in a bunch of different ways? And so maybe that's, you have a Substack that's a bit more long form. You pull out like a 2-sentence awesome tidbit from the Substack that you then post on LinkedIn. And then maybe you post that on Instagram stories or something in text, right? So it's like, how can you repurpose like one piece of content that you've created? So that's one thing. Staying true to who you are, not forcing yourself to do something that feels disingenuous, I think is great. But I do think at the end of the day, there is so much value in sharing what you are doing and some of your wins and different things like that with your network, because I think it is going to inspire people. It's going to get people excited. And also it doesn't have to be like, oh my gosh, I just won a Nobel Peace Prize. Like obviously the number of people who have done that are like, in the handfuls, right? So it doesn't have to be, when I talk to people and mentor people about like, oh, what should I post? Like, it doesn't have to be like, oh my gosh, I cured cancer, then I got the Nobel Peace Prize. Like, it's like these little wins and like showing your journey kind of a thing that actually is really going to resonate really well. And, if that week you're like, man, I feel like I don't really have anything to say, like look on your feed and look at what other people are posting, and you can repost and reshare what other people are posting. Sometimes you might also add like a little blip, you know, on the top of a 2-sentence of like, thanks so much for sharing this. Wow, what a value add, resharing for my network. Then all of a sudden it looks like you're active on LinkedIn and you're putting your little 2 cents in. There are definitely some weeks where I'm like, well, I have so much going on, but I definitely want to continue to stay active on LinkedIn for the algorithm. And I'll just repost something else that someone else said. Like I'll click just like repost, and then it shares what they're doing with my network, but it also is like kind of the way that I'm contributing to my network too, is showcasing what someone else is doing. If I don't feel like, you know, that week that I want to showcase something that I'm doing. Yeah, I hope that's helpful, because it's finding what works for you. And it shouldn't be like, oh my gosh, I have to do this thing. It's like, okay, I did this really cool thing. So how can I share it so that it can potentially help someone else? So it's more of the end goal of like, how can this one item or thing help someone, versus like, you know, kind of the, what is it, like self-promotion that people are generally uncomfortable with.
Yeah, thank you. That makes so much sense. And I absolutely love what you're sharing. So I will address the first piece and echo what you said about the experience part of it. I think experience is king, and it trumps the degrees. And the degrees, like you said, are only as powerful as how you actually utilize them. And I'll give you an example. I've seen people that have MBA degrees, but they still need mentorship and support around building a business. So they need additional training for that, even though they should, technically that degree kind of grants them the ability to create and run a business, right? So that's number one. Number two is, I actually think we should have our education system be a lot more hands-on, and sort of be the other way around, where you have the internship and the mentorship and the apprenticeship go before you decide to go get more formal training in it. So if we realize that, to your second point, we're enjoying something, we could see ourselves doing something long-term. And again, of course, we might be pivoting sooner rather than later and trying something new. But if we, let's say, for an example, I went to intern at a local herb shop before I decided to go get a formal herbalist certification training. And that's the reason that I decided to go for it, is because I actually enjoyed it and I wanted to get deeper into it. So the content piece, I totally agree with you as well. And it just all goes back to this one pearl that I learned from a mentor about really finding that joy. And if you focus on feeling joyful while you do anything, that's when it stops feeling like a chore. That's when it stops feeling like work. And that's when you understand that you are really connected to your purpose. So focusing just on those things and that principle of like, am I actually enjoying it, is going to allow you to get the clarity to what is actually serving you. And it also will stop you from questioning, oh, like, do I have a hidden agenda here with my strategy? Because that's the thing that really trips us up when we think, you know, I'm only doing this so that, you know, I can get XYZ. It's like, no, you're doing this because you actually enjoy doing this. And that's what will actually bring you XYZ a lot easier and sooner. So, so thank you for all those tips. I think they're great. And this is something that we, myself, and my clients work through all the time. And I think it's so helpful to just share with anybody else that might be thinking about embarking on a journey of entrepreneurship, or, you know, just widening your scope and trying yourself out in different capacities. So I do want to ask you though, when things do get hard, like you said, you know, sometimes you do work for free, or sometimes you're not seeing the fruit of your labor, you know, how do you keep the faith?
I think it's all about the step-by-step approach. So I don't work for free anymore, to be frank. But in the beginning, I definitely did. And it's like, you have to weigh is this an experience that's going to bring me to the next step and up level to a place where I want to be? Or am I doing it to, you know, make a paycheck, right? So it's like, what's the by saying yes to this opportunity, what's the end goal? And then also there are other opportunities where maybe you will take like a pay cut for something, for example, because, you know, you really want to work with that team, you really want to learn that particular skill. And so therefore you're willing to, you know, take a pay cut to then be able to learn that skill and then bring that to the next client potentially, where you can then, you know, charge what you think you're worth, right? So it's all about like, what are you trying to curate, like, and how are you trying to build your resume, and what sort of skills do you want to be adding to your toolbox? So that's how I approach it, is like, you know, I'm really trying to hone into, you know, 2025 with like, anyone I'm saying yes to, anything I'm saying yes to, I really want it to feel like this is the right decision. And, you know, I'm trying not to look at like the bottom line. It's more of like, is this, you know, activity, is this project, is this initiative moving me closer towards, you know, the life that I want to have and the sort of roles that I want to have? Because this could be like a soapbox moment, but I do think it is like one of the things that we don't talk about in school, which is like a part of your, actually, to your point about hands-on learning, is what do we want our life to look like? Because oftentimes, like in school, it's like, okay, what specialty are you interested in if we're going to like pharmacists, right? So it's like, are you interested in cardiology? Are you interested in maybe pursuing herbal medicine? Like, what sort of specialty are you interested in versus like, what does that life actually look like day to day? You know, like, are you going to be working fully remotely? Is that, you know, working in person? Do you want to work in person 6 days a week? Do you want to be on call in, you know, a high stress situation? Like, what sort of lifestyle do you want to have? And I think a part of, you know, figuring out exactly what you want to do, whether that's specialty related, whether that's like the sorts of roles you go after, the sorts of, let's say, if you want to get into consulting, like what sort of consulting you want to do. It has to come back to what sort of lifestyle you want to have. And I think that that's been a learning and growing process for me, because definitely in pharmacy school, I was not thinking about that. I was thinking more of like, what sorts of specialties am I interested in? And now I've kind of gotten to the point with like, how can I blend my interest in specialties and the roles that I want to have with the sort of lifestyle that I want to have, which, you know, I love working remotely. I love having the flexibility. You know, I live between 2 different places, and my family lives on a completely different, you know, coast. And, you know, and my friends live all over the country and all over the world, really. So it's like, how can I continue to do what I love? And contribute to, you know, science, CPG, you know, anything that I'm interested in, but I want to be able to do it and create a lifestyle that also goes along with that.
I'm so glad that you're bringing this up, because we sometimes forget that we're a whole person. And when we compartmentalize our job, you know, our career persona, and then like our family, and then like friends, and then maybe caretaker role or whatever, we sometimes can't even like invite all those people from all these different worlds into one party, let's say, you know, like from a practical standpoint, because we feel like we have to play these different roles. But when we dedicate so much of our life to our careers, right, it should be part of our life, not that our life has to conform to the career. So you get to make those choices, like, how do you want, what lifestyle, to your point, do you want to create? What work balance looks like for you, where it doesn't maybe feel like work because you're actually enjoying, again, connecting to the purpose, which I think is the bottom line for me. So for you, you know, moving cross country and like doing all these different jobs and roles, and I know you got married recently, so congrats on that. Like, how do you keep that line of work life, and how do you balance those things? What would your advice be for people who may be finding it challenging?
Yeah, so there's I just listened to a really good interview. I love the CEO and one of the co-founders of Skims, Emma Greed. She is just, the way that she talks about her like balancing work life. I mean, she's a part of multiple billion-dollar enterprises and has 4 kids and, you know, a loving husband, right? So she's like on paper doing it all, right? But I love the way she talks about it's not about the balance, because you just have to prioritize different things at different times. And if like she's like, I want to be successful in my career, I also want to have a family, I also want to have an amazing relationship with my husband. And so for her, it's the and, like, how do I do all of these things together, but also understanding that one day, like, I might need to fly to New York to go to a conference and do these things. Like, that's, in a few weeks, that'll be me. And I have to prioritize, work now. And then afterwards, I can prioritize other things, right? So it's like that, it's not necessarily a balance. It's more of that like work-life integration where like I might have, something in the morning where I'm meeting up with a friend for coffee, but then I work for 4 hours and then I go on date night, then I come back and then I have, like 2 more hours of work I need to finish. And then, then after that, it might be like a late night workout at 10 p.m., right? So it's like, how are you going to fit all of these things in? And in different hours, you're prioritizing different things. But it doesn't necessarily mean that work is more important than your family, or friends are more important than your family or work, or, all of those things. It's like nothing is more important than the other, but it's more of like, what are your values? And then how are you just balancing, or not balance, I don't like that word, but like, how are you prioritizing different items at different parts of your day? Because as you mentioned, it's like we are a whole person. And so we want to have all these different things that are going super well for us, but they all can't be necessarily going well at different times. There's another expert out there who talks about it in terms of seasons. Like, it's like one season of your life might be like, all right, well, I have to like get this project done. I have 4 clients right now. This deadline is coming up here. So I'm going to forgo doing, XYZ things with, friends for, 2 weeks because I really need to hunker down and do this. And the next 2 weeks might be like the 2 most social weeks of your life, which I feel like I just had, because it's like, like the holidays just happened, super social, super fun. And then the first few weeks back of the year is like, all right, hunker down, got to get all these things done, and just like ensure that I'm staying on track. So it's a bit of rambling, right? But like at the end of the day, it's like not everything is going to be perfect all in the same minute or in the same hour, but how can you ensure that you're, feeding all of these different like desires or things that make you happy?
Yeah, yes, I love the concept of seasonality and syncing yourself to your own rhythm, and then also to the external rhythm of like nature and seasons that nature has, and the daylight that we get from the sun, and just being really, really aware of that external and internal world. And women and men are different because of their hormones and their cycles. So just like being aware which stage of life you're in, what state of your cycle maybe you're in, if you are a woman, if you're a cycling woman, and then like the things around you, and then the demands around you. And we all have the same 24 hours in a day, as the saying goes. And it doesn't mean we have to cram everything from our desires and needs into that one day. Like you said, you can spread it out, and feel free to spread it out how it makes sense for you. But some days will be, tougher, and other days will be lighter. So it's up to us to manage that.
And I love to think about it in terms of months rather than like a day, like trying to put everything into one day, or everything even into 1 week. Sometimes I feel like is difficult, but putting everything in terms of like, how am I, thinking about my values and prioritizing all these different things over a month, I think is a lot more reasonable, because then you can make time for a lot of different things, including hobbies, which I'm trying to figure out what mine are right now. So
yeah, I totally agree. Actually, I have this planner that has a monthly view, and like, that's what I use. Okay, you can't see it, but anyway, that's what I use. I use my phone a lot for planning and my calendar, but I love like the monthly view, because then I get to put like what I want to accomplish. And then as a business owner too, I like putting everything down in months, and calculating finances and all that stuff is also very helpful in month format. So Swathi, I want to thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to pick your brain. You've shared so much wisdom with us. And I want to ask you one final question, which is, if you had the opportunity to give a younger version of you some advice, what would you tell her right now? Let's say it's Swathi just starting out on this journey.
Oh man, so many things. So I would say keep at it, and don't be afraid to just be you. Because I think that it's way too easy to start seeing the job postings on LinkedIn for like the more conventional roles, and it's like, I could do that. Any pharmacist can do that, right? And so it's like really just honing into what makes you special, and what do you actually really like? What sort of life do you want to create? And keep that at the forefront of your mind, and then figure out how everything else can kind of play into that bigger vision. And don't get distracted by things that might seem like shiny or easy. Yeah.
I love it. Well, again, thank you so much. And please tell the audience how they can learn more about you, support your work, and get in touch.
Yes, definitely. So I just relaunched my website a few weeks ago, so we're super excited about that. We as in me, I did it. But yeah, so just relaunched my website. So it's drswathivaranasi.com. Feel free to check that out. And if you want to connect, I'm doing a lot of mentorship right now. So if people are interested in hopping on a call with me or hopping on a series of calls with me, I'm doing that. So would love to connect and see how I can help you, whether it's figure out what you want to do in integrative medicine or figure out what you want to do in terms of just building your own kind of consulting portfolio career.
Love it. So thank you again for being on here. And who knows, maybe you'll be back on at a later season. So thanks, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Bye.